Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to treat the creation of a nation exactly like what it really was, the building of a massively complex, utterly unprecedented architectural blueprint. We are, of course, talking about the foundation of the United States. So forget the dry history lessons for a minute. We are going to witness the high-stakes creation of a nation by looking at the actual plans and private letters of the founders so we can see exactly how the American identity was built straight from the ground up. So here's our blueprint for today. We'll hit architects of American identity, the 7 founding figures, framework for a republic, debating the Bill of Rights, and finally, reflections on leadership legacy. Okay, let's kick things off with a little trivia. Literally, how do you build a republic from scratch? I mean, think about it. It wasn't magic. It required navigating an intense, real-world struggle for national independence, while simultaneously trying to invent a completely new system of government. They were essentially flying the plane while building it. Keep that monumental challenge in mind as we explore the documents that made it all happen. Starting with Section 1, Architects of American Identity. Let's look at the foundational documents that made this entirely new nation possible. We are diving into an absolutely amazing, truly unique selection of documents. We're talking private letters, constitutional plans, and founding addresses, brought to us by the U.S. National Archives in collaboration with Google Arts and Culture. We aren't just looking at the polished public speeches here. No, we are reading their actual private correspondence. We get to see their doubts, their brilliant strokes of genius, and all of that behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Moving right along to Section 2, the 7 founding figures. Let's meet the master builders. These 7 guys were the primary minds at work. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay. You can kind of think of them as the ultimate architectural firm. But before they could even draft the Republic, they had to secure the plot of land, meaning they had to successfully navigate wartime strategy against a global superpower. And every single one of these men brought a vital, totally different set of skills to that survival phase. Which brings us to Section 3, Framework for a Republic. This is where we examine the structural blueprint. Once independence was finally won, that's when the real intellectual heavy lifting began. And it's fascinating because we see 2 massively influential, but honestly completely distinct visions collide. On one side, you have James Madison pushing for this meticulous, carefully balanced constitutional framework. But then on the other, you've got Alexander Hamilton maneuvering for a vastly different, highly centralized, really powerful structure. It wasn't just one unified idea where everyone agreed. The final constitution was literally forged in the fire of this exact intellectual compromise. Now, as you might guess, this construction project was definitely not peaceful. That brings us to Section 4, Debating the Bill of Rights. Chronologically, this was essentially a 3-part build, right? First, the raw struggle for independence. Then, drafting the structural framework. And finally, the intense policy debates surrounding the Bill of Rights. See, the Constitution gave the government its power, but the Bill of Rights was demanded to explicitly put a hard limit on that power and protect the individual. The debates over these first 10 amendments, they were heated, they were highly strategic, and they were absolutely vital to getting the whole project approved. Finally, let's look at the finishing touches in our last section, Reflections on Leadership Legacy. You know, discovering the men who built the American identity really isn't just about reading dry legal frameworks. It's about reading their private letters to understand their deepest reflections on leadership. After the war was won, after the laws were written, these architects looked back at the sheer scale of what they had just survived. They absolutely knew they had created something incredibly fragile, and their final addresses reveal the immense weight of the legacy they knew they were leaving behind for future generations. And that leaves us with a deeply provocative thought. Knowing what we know now about the private letters, the strategic maneuvering between figures like Madison and Hamilton, and those intense, high-stakes debates over our basic rights, how do these original blueprints continue to define the American identity today? Because at the end of the day, the foundation they poured is the exact same one we are standing on right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go explore these foundational documents for yourself.